Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our online panel discussion. We appreciate you joining us. We have a great panel, and I look forward to a wonderful discussion this morning on this topic of accelerating application modernization with low-code platforms. So let me go right to the introductions and let our panel introduce themselves, starting with Tom.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jerry. It's great to be here. Look forward to this discussion. It's going to be more of a free-flowing discussion, a couple slides here and there, but mostly, just engaging in a good conversation. In terms of my background, my background is as a developer from an early age, but I've started some companies and then done a lot of writing over the years, such as for Forbes.com. And then I have a new book out called Modern Mainframe Development, and we'll talk about that a little later. So that's my background.
Thanks, Tom. And Andrew, what about you?
Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name's Andrew Manby. I head up product management for our HCL Digital Solutions business. That's a part of HCL Software, a $1.2 billion business. For me, I've had experiences in both product management and in marketing, covering a variety of topics, including app dev, data management in the database space, as well as data integration. So I know a lot about analytics and data warehousing. And, my days are focused on customer experience, thought leadership, of which low-code application development is one piece of it. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Andrew. And then finally, our last panelist, Russ Teubner.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, my thanks to Tom and Andrew for joining us today. I love this format where we just get to dialogue. My name is Russ Teubner. I'm the co-founder and CEO of HostBridge Technology. I spend my days and sometimes my nights along with our team helping our customers around the world integrate and leverage their existing investments in IBM System Z apps and data. We do that by providing more effective integration techniques and methodologies to blend together existing investments in the mainframe and our customers' growing investment in a hybrid cloud environment.
Thank you to all of our panelists. And my name is Jerry Rackley, and I am here just to make sure that we get through our session and to monitor questions. So in fact, let's talk about that. We want your questions. As we go through this discussion, we hope it triggers thoughts, reactions, and things that you wish to share. So if you will look at your console, you will see there is a Q&A icon, and we encourage you anytime throughout our discussion today to send questions to the panelists, and we will handle those questions probably as we get to the end. But who knows, we might decide to interrupt what's going on and take a question right in the middle of our session. One of the things I want to let you know is that we have an offer of a copy of Tom's book. So those of you who dare to ask questions, we know that usually there's some shyness on these webinars, but if you have a question and you ask it, there's a pretty good chance one of our panelists will say that merits a copy of Tom's book. And Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, thanks very much. And I think on Amazon, it goes for $69. So there's 69 reasons for asking a question on this webinar. I actually started writing this book about this time last year. So it's taken about a year, and I did my last edits last week. So it's ready to go. The book is in two parts. The first part is the fundamentals of mainframe development. ISPF, COBOL, REX, DB2, IMS, CICS, and so forth. And then the second half of the book are the more modern topics, AI, RPA, low code, which we're talking about today, DevOps, and so on. And then I talk, the last chapter is about modernization strategies, which we'll also talk about today. So that's a little background about my book.
That's great. So ask a question, and while supplies last, you may get a copy of Tom's new book. All right, let's start our discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to you, gentlemen, on the panel, and let's go to our first slide.
Great. Actually, could you build that out if that's okay, Jerry? Yeah, Sorry, Russ, you were going to say something.
Oh, no.
Okay. I asked for this slide to be included because I thought it was like a good jumping off point for the conversation, right? Technology is a great thing, but there's a business driver behind it. And I also want to be able to get into the conversation because I heard it from Tom and I heard it from Russ. It's like, what is low code? So we'll cover that in a second. As I was mentioning, what I was sort of focused on is a lot of the organizations we work with have, as you can probably imagine, you have it yourself, evolving business expectations, right? And through the pandemic, those expectations have evolved and heightened and certainly changed. And, when organizations have thought about new ways to engage either with their customers, their key business partners, or their channel, or key ways to integrate or engage with consumers. And certainly you can imagine in a retail type scenario, I've done it, I'm sure all of you've done it on the panel here and all of you attending as well, is, in the early days of the pandemic, you weren't going to the store quite as often to go and buy stuff, right? So buy online, pick up in store was important, and a lot of retailers had to do that. But really, if you look at the evolution of organizations thinking from a digital first perspective, a lot of them really thought about how do I create a seamless digital and brick and mortar experience for consumers. So, can I experience the store when I'm at home? Can I get more out of the store when I'm in the store presence itself? And can I increase my average basket size? Now, if you're a partner, are there new ways to interact with your business partner chain to bring about a good result? So there's an evolving business pressures. They've turned into pressure on IT and on all of us to deliver. Mobile is a key enabler, or multi-experience, should I say, is a key enabler. So whether it's a kiosk, a tablet, it could be a wearable device, as an example. To convey that experience. And organizations want to be able to improve not only the web experience and the way they engage, but they also want to improve the mobile experience. And what we're finding is companies are thinking about their second or third generation mobile experience. And what that's necessitated is a much more responsive way to build a new set of applications that engage with those key constituencies, and doing it in a way that's faster than traditional hand coding techniques, and making sure that you can code once and deploy many across all those different devices. And that's where VoltMX, our platform, comes into play. And based on the survey data that we had from a recent Forrester survey, which we'll make available, Jerry, to all the attendees here, organizations saw 80% of respondents said mobile was a key enabler for innovation, whether it's employee or customer. 72% wanted to improve their mobile experiences, and 68% of them told us that low code was a top 3 IT priority. And I think this is where it gets interesting from this discussion standpoint. I've looked at the HostBridge technology. It's superb, and it's something that's very akin to and integrates very nicely with what we do with VoltMX. So I think we're opening Pandora's box here in terms of what can everyone do with the combination of HostBridge and VoltMX on the mainframe to deliver the next gen experience as part of their modernization strategy. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty good presentation in terms of kind of this modernization, mega trend that's going on just across the world, and it's been accelerated with COVID-19. Maybe Jerry, go to the next slide, unless Russ has a question about this.
No, other than to say, I think Andrew nailed it. I mean, those are exactly the themes that I'm picking up, interacting with our customers week in and week out as well. Their expectations are evolving. There's lots of pressure on IT to produce faster, better, cheaper, and to do it at a velocity, but with agility that really does create strategic competitive advantage.
And as I move to the next slide, I'll point out we have our first question already, and Brad asked, what is low code? And so I will leave it to our panelists to decide when the right time is to address that.
So I hit that one now.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, let's do that. So what's actually happened in the market? I mean, wanting to build stuff quickly has been around for a long period of time, right? I mean, there are other three-letter acronyms like RAD around, right? I can remember with Gupta SQL. I can remember when there were other development platforms and frameworks like Uniface around. So the desire has always been for the business to develop an end product faster. So low code and our flavor of it is low code for professional developers. So it's a way to give the traditional full stack professional developer a way to be more productive what they have and the skills that they have, and being respectful of the traditions of application development with using the core languages like JavaScript and actually using traditional secure DevOps pipelines that they would do normally. So we're not sort of, from a low-code perspective, replacing the role of the application developer and all of the skills. All we're doing is augmenting them and giving them superpowers. What those platform also enables them to do is to work with cross-functional teams, as some people would call them fusion teams, to work very closely with people from line of business, also work with the design team, perhaps, so they can have a consistent look and feel, and work with the other integration teams to build those prototype those experiences and deliver them much faster on their favorite app store or within their own private web deployments, as an example. Now, there is another type of code out there called no code. Traditionally, those are more focused on what the role of the citizen developer. So citizen developers, like citizen analysts, are folks, business people inside the organization. They may be tech savvy, and traditionally they are building the types of apps which are more situational. So they're building apps for approval, very basic sort of approvals, data entry and data collection type forms. But when it comes to building an app that you're going to put in the hands of your insurance agents, or building an app that you put in front of a teller, then you need a low-code professional development platform for that.
Could I make a comment on that, Jerry?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I think Andrew's really described it precisely, and I just want to embellish that, and by saying, in our conversations with customers, low code and no code options are kind of viewed as one bundle, one ball, and I really like the way that HCL defines their platform as being low code for the professional developer. I think that's really, really important, because in the conversation about low code or even no code platforms, sometimes there's this assumption that somehow the tools and technologies that you are going to use to do no code programming of a Raspberry Pi controller is somehow the same techniques or technologies you're going to use to make enterprise class mobile applications. And it's just not so. They are different. They are different products. They are different, techniques and technologies. And so I think it's really important, especially when most every article you read in either a technology or a business publication about low code, no code starts talking about citizen developers kind of in paragraph 2. It's really important to draw this distinction that there is a category of products, and HCL Volt MX is a leading example, that are low code products meant for professional developers.
That's good.
I think that sounds great. I think the other thing too is, we're going to have a couple questions, some big questions here revolving around modernization. And, the first part is, we got the mainframe, we got the apps and the data on the mainframe. Companies have spent huge amounts of money and effort for decades creating these applications, and they work. I mean, you can, in my book I talk about, there are applications that were written in the 1970s that work just fine today, and the scale of these mainframe applications, far surpass, these other things on distributed environments. So the mainframe, we always say that every year someone says the mainframe's dead and it just won't die, and it's actually growing. So, we just can't rip, there are great use cases for the mainframe. And it in a lot of, situations, it just doesn't make sense to get rid of them. So how can we work with, this valuable technology? But at the other hand, we've had this explosion of innovation in the consumer and the enterprise world. We all have a smartphone. We all use cloud apps. We've got CRMs, we got ERPs. It seems like there's an application for everything. And consumers, we've gotten spoiled. We use Uber, we use Amazon, and things just happen and they're quick and so forth. So how do we bridge these two worlds? Take this data and the applications we have on the mainframe, but also meld that in with what consumers or employees or whatever stakeholders we have are accustomed to, and they can get the best results for everybody. So let's maybe go to the next slide. There's a lot of information here, but I know Russ will do a good job of boiling it down for everybody. It's actually, I think I stole this slide from my book in the last chapter for Modernization. So Russ, maybe let's talk about, the first part of this problem and this puzzle of mainframe apps and data, and, what's being done on that for, in dealing with some of those legacy systems and getting more value from it.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. What you're seeing is an excerpt of a bit of research and from an article that Gartner did a little while ago. And I thought it was astoundingly helpful to a lot of our customers, to us. Now, never mind that whether there are 7 categories or options or 5 options, I've seen it cast different ways. But they take an appropriate view that there are various options to modernization. And so let's just observe first and foremost that the phrase mainframe modernization does not have a single definition for all customers. Now, and that really sort of drives me crazy in a world where, literally 50% of the articles about mainframe modernization have something to do with getting rid of it. Well, for sure, that is not the definition, the all-encompassing or even the dominant definition of mainframe modernization. There are many nuances based upon the particular role that those mainframe apps and data play within an organization. The other thing that I thought this article did very well was the fact that it did not postulate, it does not dictate that you adopt one approach, one option. The fact is, our customers are running at least 3 of these, most of them, at least 3 simultaneously based upon the nature of the apps and the data. So A, don't get locked into one definition of, quote, modernization. And then secondly, understand that you're probably going to be running various tracks in parallel. Now, another thing that they did as part of this research is that they estimated the risk or the cost, agility, and risk factors associated with each of these. Jerry, would you put that up? Yeah. I thought this was really helpful. And they did this based upon their research. This wasn't just gut feel. And the way to read this is that encapsulation, item number 1, was scored to have the lowest cost, highest agility, and lowest risk, whereas total elimination and replacement is at the other end of the spectrum, having highest cost, lowest agility, highest risk. Now, I suppose, great debates could erupt anywhere between those endpoints. But our experience, both directly and from that of our customers, is that they've at least nailed correctly. They've identified correctly the cost, agility, and risk factors associated with encapsulation. And by encapsulation, I want to dwell on that just a little bit, because that is, in fact, the methodology that is, or the approach that is embraced by our flagship product called HBJS, running on the mainframe, under CICS, and on the zip. We encapsulate various multiple mainframe or CICS app and data artifacts and create an API around them. And then that allows organizations, once the API is created, to then consider other modernization strategies with respect to those components. So I'll just close there. Maybe Andrew or Tom have other comments on this chart, but I've always found this very helpful. And it also cleanly positions at least what HostBridge's position is in this approach toward mainframe modernization.
Yeah, I think it's a great slide, actually. I'm just sort of thinking about my experiences. I mean, if you're a CIO today and you're thinking about your initiatives, right? I mean, you think about skills gap, you're thinking about, modernization, you're thinking about digital transformation. And those are probably the lenses you're coming to this saying, do I have the skills I need in order to be able to keep these applications running? Are there applications that make sense that are in the SaaS world that have a better fit for my business, perhaps? But I think that number one point on here for me is most relevant, because that's what I hear most often. It's not that they want to rebuild an app in low code. The challenge for them is there's a new way to engage with this constituency, maybe with a customer. And a wonderful example of this is the DC DMV. One of our customers, so the District of Columbia Motor Vehicle Registry, their challenge was, well, we want to make it easier for people to register a vehicle or pay for their parking. So we want them to skip the line going into an office. So the best way of doing that is to create an app that will empower every citizen or auto dealership, perhaps, registering new plates without having to go into it. And what that meant for them was really encapsulating all of their back-end systems and creating a new business process out of it using VoltMX, right? So frequently, what you're advocating here, Russ, which I think is great, is let's encapsulate it. Let's use that lowest cost compute platform for what it's really good at, and then extend the function so you can give new user experiences. You can also effectively change the business process associated with it and create entirely new value from it. Because that seems to me, on the value creation side, actually more valuable than the cost reduction and the business interruption continuity that you would lose from moving off this particular platform. So to me, it seems like a win-win.
Yeah, it really is. And I also want to, though, just reinforce one thing, and that is that this decision to encapsulate, in other words, let's create an API that encapsulates a particular set of apps and data so that they can be easily and conveniently leveraged by anything outside the mainframe. That does not in any way restrict or cast an organization's future. In fact, quite the contrary. One of our customers has been building APIs for well over a decade using our product. And what they do is they stand up APIs around a collection of app and data resources. And then based upon the utilization of that API within their organization, they then might make a decision to refactor that code on the platform, or perhaps rehost one aspect of that application off to the cloud, maybe keeping the data here, but all the time keeping the API consistent. So again, I just think it's really important for organizations, CIOs, to understand that these various tactics and strategies or options work and play together.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. These are not discrete areas, except probably for replacement. And there's so many classic cases on replacement. Speaking of DMVs, I think the California DMV spent years trying to replace all their mainframes, spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and literally got nothing out of it. So you see these classic cases of replacements going nowhere. I think although I think Amadeus did a replacement, their large company, airline reservation company in Europe, and they actually did go completely off mainframe, but I think it took them close to 20 years to do that. And I think in today's world, there are no 20-year plans. If you have a 1-year plan, you're probably going to have a tough time talking to the CEO and getting budget. So I think agility is important. Spending a lot of time on huge projects and big bang projects is just, again, there's just not a lot of appetite for that. And I think some of these approaches these 1 to 2, 3 areas up here on this chart are much more realistic and will probably get better results for your modernization.
Yeah. One of the questions that came up, I see there from Jamal, was asking the question about why this combination of the two things together. And for me, one of which is, I have several, but the first is the scale, and then the security associated with our platform, right? I mean, our MX platform is trusted by governments. It's trusted by regulated industries. That's bread and butter for everyone who's using an IBM mainframe, to be honest. And that security should be job number one, right? So that's one reason for using it. I think the second thing with this encapsulation approach that's really important is how we differentiate ourselves is the strength of our data integration layer within the platform itself. So compared to other competitors who would use other third-party middleware, that data integration piece comes out of the box, and it makes it very easy to integrate with the series of RESTful APIs. And then within that, we're able to abstract everything that happens in the back end to the front end. So say, for instance, you've encapsulated n number of systems. You've done that seamlessly using the HostBridge capability, which plugs in very nicely. And I think you're going to see that from Daryl shortly. But you're able to really abstract the front from the back, as you were saying there, Tom. If you can plan ahead for the next year, that's a good thing, right? And in the world of low-code building these applications, particularly if you're dealing with any type of constituency like employees or customers, you expect that to change, right? You expect that to go through multiple iterations during a year or a couple of years. And as the enterprise landscape shifts out from underneath you, and it's not just the mainframe, but other systems as well, having Volta-MX keeps that very seamless. And then last thing I would say is, this platform is trusted on North Sea oil drilling rigs around the world. It's responsible for doing inspections and on the shop floor. So having really strong offline capabilities is really important. And particularly in those environments, you don't know when you're going to connect again. So having full featured applications on the device are very important. So that's three things that pop out to me, immediately that make this a strong story overall.
Gentlemen, let me interrupt. We have had some questions, and we appreciate your questions. Please keep sending them to us. There's one that was answered, I think, already. Daryl, thank you. You typed an answer to the question about where Volta-MX runs. And another question that, Russ, I think you probably want to take before we move on.
Yeah, Scott, I just want to say thank you for this question. And by the way, I love this question. And so, Jerry, I don't know what magic is involved in doing this, but please send Scott one of Tom's books. The question that Scott has asked is, today we use a combination of products in the low-code space. We use some RPA tools to do green screen automation and have the ability to expose these as APIs. What's different here? What are we supposing? Well, I think this is a great question because what you're describing, or the question describes, is a very common design pattern that we see, and that is something outside the mainframe, a low-code platform, or particularly an RPA platform, interacting with terminal-oriented or screen-oriented transactions via terminal emulation and screen scraping. Now, I've written chapters and white papers about screen scraping and emulation as an integration technique, but let me just net it out to this. It's a bad idea. And here's why it's a bad idea. One is we now have something outside the mainframe, like an RPA platform or a low-code, no-code platform, that is integrally reliant upon the screen geometry and the location of particular fields on a given screen. Honestly, nothing is more brittle than that. And that reliance between where something outside the mainframe is now just completely conjoined with the implementation of that application on the mainframe, that linkage, that detailed linkage, does a number of things. One is it absolutely freezes out, usually, the possibility of evolving the mainframe app. Because as soon as you have all of these things outside the mainframe, reliant upon the fact that, customer number is always on screen 3, row 5, column 20 for 10 spaces, you're dead. You can never touch that screen again, pretty much. And so these organizations enter a state that I like to call application rigor mortis. In other words, the application kind of becomes frozen. The edict goes out. Don't you dare change that app. Well, that's completely counterproductive. Now, even if you promise me that app will never change and there's no business need to evolve the app, I would still say that integrating from an RPA platform or low-code, no-code to a mainframe app using emulation screen scraping is still a bad idea, simply because of performance issues. We have one of the products in our product line is an analytics product where we actually capture data that shows and illustrates this dialogue going between RPA platforms or Excel spreadsheets or low-code platforms and the mainframe and CICS using emulation and screen scraping. And you just wouldn't believe what we see. And secondly, you just wouldn't believe how expensive it is in terms of the mainframe backend. In fact, our whole analytics business started one day, sitting in my chair here. I received a phone call, and it was from a responsible person in a large organization who said, something is killing us. We don't know what it is. Our business is growing nicely, but our mainframe transaction volume is growing asymmetrically relative to the underlying business. What's going on? Well, it turned out what was going on was a whole lot of low-code RPA platforms and Excel macros that were driving terminal emulation and screen scraping interactions with the mainframe. So happy to say more about this, and I think Tom actually touches on that in a brief section of the book.
Yeah, I do actually have a section on HostBridge talking about how that can be used as an alternative to RPA. I do cover RPA as well, and I think Russ is correct about that. You got to be very careful about using some of these products and understanding the hit to performance or the higher costs, and you got to weigh the automation versus some of these other things when you're doing that. So I think that's a really good point.
And I might just make one more comment before we move on, and that is that don't take anything I said as being not a fan of RPA or low-code, no-code platforms. I am. But if you take the approach of lashing together your RPA platform or your low-code platform to the mainframe using emulation and screen scraping, you have very likely taken one step forward and two steps back. And much of the cost savings that you think you're getting from the RPA initiative, for example, is given up in the operational inefficiencies on the back end, on the mainframe. So we are not arguing against any of those modern technologies. We are arguing for a more performant and resilient style of integration between those platforms and the mainframe.
Yeah, and just for those who are not maybe as familiar with RPA, RPA is really for automating tedious and repetitive processes in the workforce. So, people just, simple stuff is like copy and pasting information all day. Why should a person waste their time on those kinds of activities? But when you start automating those activities, the ROI can be significant, and the impact on the organization can be big. And that's why RPA is. But just, I think, like anything, you look at the technology, and you figure out what are the best use cases, and sometimes you think, well, RPA can do all this here, must do a lot of it over here, but that's not necessarily the case. And I think mainframe is a bit of its own animal, and I think you have to be careful with taking one technology and one use case and bringing it to the mainframe.
Yeah, I would. I like what you've been talking about. I think RPA is an umbrella for multiple things, right? Multiple type of activities. I think the emulation is one of those, keystrokes is one of them. But there are other places, such as in document ingestion and online document stuff. That's fantastic, right? Who wants to sit through and ingest thousands or hundreds of thousands of PDF documents to pull out, pieces of information and rekey it into a spreadsheet or into a database? So, coming from the world of analytics, there's a big difference between batch-oriented updates to your data warehouse to real-time updates in terms of impact on the systems involved, right? And I just choose your weapon of choice carefully. And understand, I think when we're hearing from Russ, consider the application in the context of the performance of the overall solution.
Okay, great. I think this is the question more for Andrew. Who can't love green screens? So we have one of those here, and but most younger people look at those and wonder, what do I do with that? So so now bringing these two worlds together of the mainframe and the rich front end experiences, and how low code can help with that and some of these other technologies. So Andrew, maybe your thoughts on this part of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, but I think we're going to a demo. But I think the important thing for me is, and I was around during the period of green screens and had terminals on my desk at different points in time. I think, one of the things you have to sort of consider is, do you want to just create a facsimile of what's on the green screen? And for most organizations, that's not what's important. What's important is figuring out, is there a way to streamline, as I was saying, a business process, or actually deliver more value? So you can see here, I think Daryl's going to talk to how he built this using VoltMX in a matter of a couple of hours or less. But it gives you the opportunity to combine things you weren't able to do before, right? When I was involved in writing programs that worked on this sort of form factor, it was sort of two-dimensional, right? It was up to you about what you could put onto that individual screen. But now you have the flexibility to not only incorporate other forms of data, as you can see here, from refactoring to make it easier to navigate in a mouse-oriented world. It could be making it work on a form factor with a tablet, so it's really your finger doing the navigation. But there's also thinking, well, should I collapse multiple screens together into one screen and deliver the same amount of information in that individual form factor to make a better overall experience? Can I remove 3 screens to get to one screen that's going to improve, say, for instance, the make it easier for an agent to save 5 minutes on a screen a day. And they're working with multiple customers in a day. So can you save on contact center costs, right? Can you write an insurance policy faster as a result of streamlining a process? So really, as we say in Voltam Xland, if you can imagine it, you can build it. So that's, it's not, working with the business is to say, well, what would you like this experience to be and what's important to your business? So that's really the impetus for, for including this slide.
Okay, great. So I think the next step is a demo from Daryl.
Yep.
Yes, we're going to go into that. You'll see what we're talking about. So Daryl, take it away. Share your screen and walk us through it.
Let me get my screen shared here, guys, and we will. Well, I'm trying to find the screen share.
At the bottom, if
there we go. All right, guys. So, this all started a few months ago between a conversation with Russ and Jerry and several of us were on a call. And what we started with is, how could we work together? And within about 15 minutes, Jerry and I actually, and we'll get this up here, from our Foundry layer, went to in and had the two systems communicating. And what we have here is two sets of tools. And the question earlier, sort of laid out, you have your Foundry layer, and this is our integration / security / analytics. There's a lot, and we could spend a lot of time on this, but given we have a short period of time, just know that this layer is built and trusted by a lot of people. And in this case, what we did is the REST APIs exposed for this particular project had a couple of APIs here, and we set up the communications, like I said, within minutes. Now, in this case, it was a couple of APIs that got the stock quotes and sent transactions back into the system. But, it can be a lot more than that. When we talk about the data, we've got the ability now. I've got this set of data that's like some of them said have been around for years, but I may need to enhance it. I may need to incorporate some mapping with Google geofencing. I may need to do other things such as natural language processing. What do I do? What can I do to enhance the experience, like Andrew was saying? So from that perspective, this is a simple example. But in here, what I've basically done is I've went out and added some localization here. I'm getting the exchange rates. I am doing language processing in the application, adding in some additional data. In this case, it's just based on the information here. I'm just going to go expand upon it and get some geo coordinates and things like that. But this could be anything. Do I need to bring data in from Salesforce? Do I need to bring this data basically anywhere, as we know today, whether it's geolocation, whether it's natural language, whether it's AI, it's getting all that data and bringing it together. And that's what Foundry lets you do. And from that perspective, inside of here, this is Iris. And from the Iris tooling, you actually come in and can see here, we develop from a single code base. This is JavaScript all under the covers. And whether we're developing, in this case, a responsive web application that you can see here, you have your different breakpoints, different things, different looks, feels, whether we will have a mobile application with a little different look and feel here. Again, all of this is using the same code base underneath. Or I have a tablet application here, and I want to see it, the different form factors of a tablet. This is, horizontal or vertical. Do I want to see it on an Apple device, or do I want to see it on an Android device? What language do I want to look at it in? Because I can set up, for like French. There you go. We have our, we're fully I-18N compliant. Now, where does all of this get to? Now, I think my share is, hold on a second. Let me share the whole screen here because I think I'm missing. Looked like I was focused in on the iris only part there. I apologize. Let me share again here and make sure we get the whole screen so that you can actually see the application. All right. So now, can everybody see this? This is basically a preview mode. With inside of Iris, it's a build once, deploy anywhere type of platform. So I also have the ability, as when I'm developing, to run live previews. And here, as you can see, whether I'm previewing native, I've got the adaptive web turned on because I want to demo it that way. But I also have preview applications for iOS and Android, mobile and tablet on the App Store that you can use here as well. But what I did, and I've built this, and this is the application. And so, let's say something is simple, that my data is only, let's say, in one language, and I need to add some additional languages here. So being able to do the localization, and you see the currency changing here as well. Something as simple as that. Adding in things like, okay, show me the map, or show me, the location on the map. Little things, but again, it just enhances the experience. And like we were saying earlier, from the multiple form factors, what's this look like on an iPhone 11 Pro? So again, same data, I'm just coming out here, and I could show this, using the same functionality that we looked at here, being able to do the different languages. It's all just built in right here for you. Likewise, being able to go out to let's just say we want to look on a Galaxy S9. What's it look like on this platform? Again, being able to do this one code base and have the ability to see it run on all the devices, because one of the areas that we're really good at is consumer applications as well. And, BYOD, bring your own device, is really prevalent in a lot of these industries. So being able to see what it looks like on all the different devices. And in this case, let's just go to an iPad Air, is for example here. And sometimes moving around inside here, and it with there we go. So again, being able to see what it looks like in this one, same functionality. Guys, we could sit here and talk about a lot of things, but like Andrew said earlier, if you can envision it, we can develop it in this platform. So
that's great.
Well, looks awesome. It's amazing just all the different form factors to work with. That's why you need these kinds of tools to speed up development, or else it just take forever.
Yeah. And as I was saying, is that you can take advantage of any of the device capabilities. So in a more sophisticated application, maybe it's for one of our customers, manufacturers home detergent products, and they have 30 factories. The people the operators who do the inspections on the machines have an iPad, right, with their inspection apps running this. So for them, this key capabilities from the native device they want to use. If you're in a retailer, maybe you want to be able to use the beacons in the store to be able to navigate. I want to find where's the aisle for the paints or the plastic buckets or something. I can either ask the app through natural language processing. I can use wayfinding. I can also do image search. I can go over a barcode. I can scan over an item, and it would recognize what that is, because we can take advantage of what the device has to offer and the compute power that's there. And I think that's where we can make those applications richer than they were ever previously imagined on the mainframe.
Well, panelists, we are at the point where we can do whatever you all wish to wrap things up. I'm going to put one more slide up, and we have resources. So those of you who have an interest, there's lots of help out there for you. So as you all are thinking about additional questions or comments, what do you think about what you've heard today? We'd like to know. There is an ebook that this entire panel discussion was based on, and if you're not certain how to get it, please reach out to us It's very simple. You can send an email message to info@hostbridge.com with any questions or comments, requests for resources, including the ebook. We offer a supported pilot program. If you want to use the tools you've seen today to do a proof of concept at your organization, we can help you do that. So let us know if that interests you. We'll have an initial discussion about it. Or if you just want to talk through your situation, we have, as you can see, experts from both companies who know everything there is to know about this particular topic. And we would be happy to sit down in a virtual session and talk through what it is you're trying to accomplish and how we might be able to help you do that. So if you have other questions, please type them in. We would love to answer them. And in the meantime, I'm going to go back to the panel and say, final thoughts, closing thoughts. What else would you like to share?
Andrew?
Oh, from me, I think this has been a great session. I really appreciate Tom and Russ's perspective. I feel for any CIO out there today who has to figure out, where to place the bets. And certainly, the drive towards digital transformation is something, a drumbeat from the from the business. And I think this combination is very powerful, right? And I love the seven layers or seven alternatives here. And having been in the green screen world, I think it's a fabulous approach to getting something done quickly. And actually something that's also very flexible for people to make an investment in over the short to medium term and longer term as well.
And I would just comment that every time I watch Daryl use VoltMX, I'm struck by a couple of things. One is that it really is tuned to professional developers, but secondly, its robustness. I mean, it's a platform that's been in the market. It's had enough time to grow and season. And then when you couple that with something like HBJS that hosts APIs directly off of System Z, the number of moving parts are driven to a bare minimum. And frankly, that's one of the Achilles heels of many of the modernization projects we see. The number of moving parts just explodes. And every time I see this demo, I'm reminded that, no, there is a simpler way. There is a better way. By hosting the APIs on System Z, by consuming those APIs from a robust low-code platform, you can really create elegant, business-oriented results that are simple, that minimize the number of moving parts, the time, and the cost involved. So, well done.
Yeah, I agree, and we all know that there's a shortage for tech talent, and it's even worse for mainframe. I mean, writing this book, there's maybe 1 or 2 courses taught about COBOL in the United States. Kids now learning programming or learning JavaScript or these different frameworks and Vue and it's just a whole other world out there. There's 2 worlds, and but companies have no choice. I mean, there was last year in J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon's shareholder letter. Most of it was about his fears about getting disrupted by fintech companies. And saying, why couldn't we build something like Square? Why couldn't we do all these things, create a PayPal? We have all the capability. We got smart people here. We have all the resources you can imagine. Why can't we move the needle when it comes to innovation and technology? And I think, part of dealing with a problem is knowing that you have a problem. And then second, you got to do something about it. And I think the good news is that there are great tools out there, such as we've seen today, that can really go a long way in helping with these efforts. And I think that the key is just get started, just start doing it and iterate. And things don't always go right the first time. That's a little different for some of these big organizations where, they're dealing with customer information. They obviously they want to get things right, but maybe sandbox it, and experiment, and iterate, and over time you get better and better. So I think like I said, like everyone said, I think a good conversation today, and I think there's some good things that those who attended can take away to their own organizations and get started on their own innovation efforts.
Yes, well, thank you. I think it's been a great session. I hope that you all who have attended got some value from it. We welcome your feedback. If you wish to share your thoughts, again, info@hostbridge.com. We have recorded today's session, so everyone who registered, and certainly all of you who attended today, will get a follow-up email from us within the next day or so, and it will include a link to our session recording, as well as links to the ebook and some other things we'll share about Tom's book. But thanks to our panelists. Thank you for the comment, Tony. We appreciate that. And thanks to all of you who took the time out of your day to attend. Again, we hope it had value, and if there's something we can do to help you, please let us know.